Well, welcome to the Before I Forget podcast. This is our first one, and today we're focusing on cricket. This is raw and uncut. We don't have the right equipment. We don't have the right facilities. We don't even have a studio, but we don't care. We're just getting amongst it. So, before I forget, it's because I'm forgetting. I'm getting older. All my athletes are getting older, and every perspective's different. So, the way I see a story is different to the way my athletes do it. So, I want to get those stories out, particularly embarrassing ones for them, but also a bit of science and a bit of knowledge as well, but not too much science. More entertainment. Anyway, today's about cricket. Sadly, we watched the Aussies bow out of the World T20 Cup in the West Indies. That's unfortunate, but congratulations, Afghanistan. Great couple of wins there. Your first win against Australia and then to win over Bangladesh in a tight one. Well deserved. And we probably got what we deserved in the end, but more on that later. Now, Jock Athletic has a history of having our athletes go overseas, and we love that. I really encourage it because they get to experience different conditions, improve in their game, playing year round rather than having an off season in the winter in Australia. So that's from our cricketers to our runners, even our hockey players. Zach's talking about going to Germany, which is fantastic. And the biggest thing for me is the full focus and commitment on their sport with no distractions of being back here. So for those amateurs trying to just get better, or for those guys trying to go to professional cricket, we've got a number overseas this year. It's a great option. We've got a few in England, some in Ireland. We often have some go up in Darwin. But the one we've got today is one of our junior athletes. He's just finished school, playing with the mighty St. George Club. He's gone over. We actually sent him over because he's going to be the co-host on this show, which I've already told you about. Sam Newton is our guest, and he's starting from the ground up as a groundsman whilst he's playing in England. Sam, show us what you're on at the moment.
Well, I'm not on a mower concurrently, but as you can see, I've just come off cutting the square. If I put my camera over here, just cut the second square here. I'm at lovely Woolpit Cricket Club. If I get a little panorama around.
Oh,
And yeah,
magic.
I'm one of two groundsmen down here that we take care of two ovals. Um, Down here three times a week. Yeah, and it's been a great opportunity to really immerse myself in cricket 24/7, I believe. Yeah.
And what a way to get to know the wicket and the conditions by actually working on it. So I imagine the week that you guys are bowling, that you leave 10 mils of grass on it, and the
Oh,
week you're
it's
batting it,
yeah,
you mow it right
correct.
down.
Correct. It's funny you say that because yeah, the first wicket I solely prepared myself, or I had more autonomy over, was over the last week. And it was actually last Friday, and I actually had my best bowling performance on Saturday on the wicket that I prepared. So there needs to be a little bit more insight into supervising of when I'm playing on a wicket. But yeah,
And Sam, tell me, what sort of background did you have in groundskeeping before this?
minimal. Yeah, very little, I would say. I may
I,
or may not
according
have.
to your according to your dad, you don't even mow the backyard.
No, well, yes, I did. I actually had none, no like groundskeeping experience. But one of my favorite sayings going around is "fake it till you make it." I sent a message over to the head groundsman, who Will Parker, and I said, "Look, mate, I've done some work here and there as a groundsman, and I know what I'm doing." And he said, "No worries, we'll get you up." And I came here first day, and just kind of faked it till I make it, and yeah, got my way through it, and here we are 2 months in, and no complaints so far. I haven't broken anything too big yet, so yeah, I'm
Well, the
getting
ground
by.
actually the ground looks in immaculate condition. And
Mm.
how hard can it be, really? Seriously, you
It
mow the
like
lawn
just
and
keep the
roll a
mower
wicket. Yeah.
just keep the mower straight and cut some grass. It really isn't that hard.
Well, everyone, Sam has got chosen for this. He's having a year off after he finished school to play cricket, but he's going to study broadcast journalism at the University of somewhere, one of the great universities in Australia, next year. He can talk more than me, so which straight away gets him on. He got a five for on the weekend, but why I really got him on was it's going to guarantee us one viewer on the podcast, and that's his mother. So welcome to the show, Sam. But I've got a couple of questions on cricket, actually. So you said you're playing for Woolpit, which is fantastic. And whereabouts is that?
So Woolpit is in Suffolk. located right just outside of Bury St Edmunds, which is the major town in Suffolk. Suffolk's actually the farming county of England. So not so much the landscape I'm used to in terms of buildings and beaches more so, but more so farmland and acres of crops and livestock. So definitely a different landscape. But mate, what it does give is it gives you an opportunity to play at some unbelievable grounds that you wouldn't even be able to comprehend back playing home. So playing at some unreal grounds like Woolpit, surrounded by farmland, surrounded by just some of the most beautiful landscapes you'll see. Yeah, it's a lovely little town. It's for those of you who don't know, England is very based off villages. Woolpit's a tiny village populated by about 400 people. And not all the players live in Woolpit. We come from just about everywhere. There would have been a
Well,
half an hour
Sydney for
radius of
one.
around Woolpit. Correct. Sydney. We've got another guy from Brisbane, another guy up in from Epping. So we've got about three Aussies over here, but it's a fantastic club, and I couldn't have asked for a better place to come, really.
Yeah, I know about it, and I know the weather's much better there because a mate of mine, Ian Crook, who played for Norwich City. I think he also coached Norwich City. He once invited me to go and be the strength and conditioning coach at Norwich City when they were in Premier League for soccer. For those of you that know soccer, and he said the last game we just have to not get relegated. If we have a draw or a win, we don't get relegated, and they lost 5-0. So didn't actually get to go over there, but he told me it's a beautiful location. So.
Oh,
One
it's
of the
fantastic.
reasons, yeah, that's awesome, mate. And one of the reasons that you get to go to, the crowd's filtering in now. A few latecomers into our crowd in the studio audience, Sam. But one of the reasons is you get far more batting when you go over and play overseas than when you do for your club side. And two of the first things that he got to do in his first game, he scored 100, Sam. And then the second game, he scored 60 off 30 balls. You're in second grade. And then you went up to first grade in their short form cricket. So, mate, just let's compare that. First 2 weeks, you got 2 innings, 160 runs. How many innings and how many runs did you get in Sydney grade cricket over 15 rounds last season?
Not many, I'd say, Jock. I probably had only about 200 runs, maybe 250 if I'm lucky, back at St George. And obviously, there's always a talk of trying to compare standards between coming over here and coming over into Sydney. And the way I put it is the standard here, it's kind of, you have to imagine the Sydney was spread out over Australia. So you're going to have good players in bad teams and bad players in good teams. That's just kind of how it is over here. But look, as you said, because of that, you do have an opportunity to bat higher in the order or not bowl or bat where you would normally bat or bowl back in Sydney. It just gives you an opportunity to try more stuff. A lot more relaxed here, I've found, especially with trying stuff with batting lineups and because we play twice, 3 times a week with T20s and Village Cup and short form on Saturdays we play our one-day cricket. It does give you an opportunity to bat in that top six when I'm traditionally a bottom six batter. But I've really found myself, my batting side, I would put, purely by being exposed to playing in the top six. Yes, I was fortunate to score runs, but the fact I was put in that position, it just was well worth it in the first place. So
Yeah, and that's one of the big things you get when you go and play overseas when you're just focusing on your game as bowlers. Even McGrath came back a better batsman, and that's saying something. So you do get a lot more, regardless of the quality. You get a lot more opportunity, and I think that's the big thing with your bowling, with your batting, with your fielding. And in Sydney, you'd be training indoors, no outdoor facilities. You wouldn't be playing games. So your game's not really improving. Physically, you can improve, but very difficult to improve your game a lot when you're not getting those, that match style conditions. So that's fantastic, mate. Now, a couple of things. You went over there. One ball you wanted to learn was the wobble seam or quarter seam ball. How's that gone?
Well, that quarter seam ball has kind of become. But traditionally, I'm an outswing bowler, as Jock will know. But traditionally, I'm an outswing bowler and move the ball quite a lot out. Now, the trouble with that is, yes, I can bowl 6 outswing balls in a row, and that's over the last few years we've been worrying about consistency. But now I'm at the point in my game where I can bowl 6 consistent outswingers. We've got to start to look at that variation ball once and over, that wicket ball, if you will. And forever and a day, people saying, "Oh, it's got to be an in swinger," but I've found that quarter seam ball has actually become my variation ball that will go the other way. Because realistically, the way my action's built, the way I run in, the way my brain works, I'm not yet at the point where I can bowl a big hooping in swinger like James Anderson. So that quarter seam ball is just that variation where I know if I put my fingers with a quarter of the seam, like angle to the right, and I just flick my fingers back behind the ball, it'll hit that seam and wobble away, either way, left or right. And that's become my variation ball. And that's just something purely by playing more I've been able to work on and develop.
Yeah, and that's brilliant, mate. And you mentioned James Anderson there. Not everyone can master a great outswinger and a great inswinger. Like it's not a
Mm,
normal thing to be able to do. So, James Anderson, obviously one of the most skillful bowlers of all time. So I'm glad you're comparing yourself to him. But I think I think that's a great option for you. I think that's a really good option for you. You got your outswinger and even a straight one or one off the seam
mm.
is
Yeah,
fantastic.
correct.
And so that's coming along well, obviously.
Yeah, it is. And and
Yeah,
and and,
awesome.
and just being, especially if you're like being a young cricketer and wanting to be able to bowl every ball, sometimes you need to simplify it back to know you don't need to be able to bowl six different variation balls. That quarter seam ball is enough when you're bowling. When you have, as long as you have one good stock ball, that little variation can make a massive change to your game.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, great. And mate, how's life over there? A couple of questions. And you can answer them in one part altogether. It's up to you. How's life over there? What surprised you? And what have you learnt that you didn't expect to learn so far?
How to use a washing machine is the first thing. I'm,
I knew it was going to be something like that.
um, so I'm living by myself at the moment. Which 18-year-old out of school, massive change regardless, moving over to overseas, but also living by myself, which wasn't originally the plan. I was meant to live with a foster or someone who would take me in, like bill at me. Ended up by myself, which I was ready. I think I was prepared for, but it doesn't. Nothing can really prepare it for you to this state to get over to a new country, not really know what's going on, and then straight into a house by yourself. So you have to worry about, what am I eating tonight? What am I spending? What am I, I've got to make sure I'm at work. I make sure my training's still regular. So that whole experience, and look, it probably took me a month to get into the rhythm of it, of not so much taking care of myself, but getting into the routine of, okay, this is washing day, this is this day, this is this. But life in general, like it doesn't get much better. I'm sitting there, it might sound like I'm complaining, but living by myself, I'm playing the sport I love. I'm in a beautiful part of the world. I mean, there's not really much more to it. I'm the happiest I've ever been over here. Absolutely loving it.
Yeah, well, mate, that's brilliant, and that's why I so encourage our young players to take a year off, whether they're trying to make it in cricket or not, or make it in sport or not, to experience life and get better at their sport. You won't come back disappointed. There's always something to
No.
gain from over there. So, and the lifelong friendships and that experience overseas, and you're so close to Europe. So great idea going, Sam. I'm really pleased you went. Now, in cricket, we've got the World Cup going on, we've got county cricket going on. There's all sorts of things happening over there and also in the States. And what's caught your eye over the last few weeks or months?
Oh well, obviously, the Afghanistan's run through this World Cup. I mean, you mentioned it at the start, and I was going to bring it up later in this episode. But first off, congratulations to them for being able to. I believe this is the first time in the finals of any major ICC tournament, which is an outstanding. And the pool group they had between India and Australia, arguably the two biggest rivals in cricket at the moment across all formats. And then obviously Bangladesh, who are a very underrated side, especially playing against a team like Afghanistan on spinning wickets that we found over in the West Indies. So for one, I was shocked because obviously Ricky Ponting last week saying he believes Australia can go undefeated throughout this World Cup, which was the frame of mind, I think, of everyone going into this World Cup. I was over here saying, we've won everything in the last 2 years. There is no reason why we shouldn't be favourites to win this World Cup. So yeah, and I think it was a bit of a shock for everyone to see that we did fall out. But at the same time, you can't not respect what Afghanistan have done and the resilience they've shown over the tournament. I think it's wonderful for the sport as well. Being over in America, seeing teams like that come through, USA um, coming up through the World Cup as well, and that gaining momentum in the US. It's really good to see cricket having a bit of resurgence in a sense and a bit of life back into it.
Yeah, and you're right with Afghanistan. You can't make it to the semi-finals. The way the tournament was set up, where you had your pool and then you had the Super Eights, you had to be one of the best teams, one of the most consistent teams to get through. There's no fluke there. They got through on merit, and they were outstanding against Australia. We were off our
Mm-hmm.
game, but they pounced and on very difficult conditions. Their opening batsmen were unbelievable. They've always had good bowlers, but their opening batsmen and their medium quicks were just superb. So yeah, 100% agree, mate. Very, very good.
And it's a format that Afghanistan, I think, obviously in Test match cricket and one day cricket, I think they've tended to struggle a little bit more so. But the T20 format just seems to suit their batting style, their play style, really. Their bowlers, obviously Rashid Khan with so much sex, wow, so much success over in the Big Bash and in and and in
You know
T20 cricket
something
all
I
around the
don't.
world. Yeah, well, you know, but yeah, I just think it suited that format suited the game, and 100% they outplayed Australia fair and square. And yeah, it's just really good for the sport, I think.
Yeah, and have you got anything to ask me, Sam?
Um, well, obviously that's what I think, Jock, but you're a bit more experience than me, and as you said, we all see things different perspectives. What's caught your eye over the last four
Well,
weeks in cricket?
I haven't really thought about it much, Sam, but good question. Yeah, well, I'm going to the Cricket World Cup as well, and some of our ex academy members have performed over there, which has really caught my eye, and it's very exciting to train these guys as young cricketers coming through and them to take a risk and then seeing them actually succeed. And my favourite, of course, is Nathan Ellis. Was a Dragon, played with the same club you're playing with, local boy from around our area. Wasn't getting a go with New South Wales cricket. Went to Tassie with no promise of anything, and 3 years later, still didn't have a contract, and then he finally cracked it. Anyway, he's made his first World Cup as an official player. He's been over to 2 as a reserve player, and he's played 3 games and did outstanding in them. So he gives everything, and I actually caught up with him for a gym session only a couple of months ago before the World Cup, and I said, mate, your story is one of my favourites, that you took that risk and went to Tassie. And he goes, it's someone like me. That's not me. I don't know how I did that risk, but he goes, I'm glad I did. So that was fantastic. And then Lockie Ferguson, another one of our academy members that came over and spent a lot of time training with us and played a bit for Sutherland, taking 3 for 0 off 4 overs in one of the round games. Great to see him still doing well and one of the fastest bowlers in the world. And then a lot of people won't remember this, but we had Trent Boult come and train with us for a couple of months way back when he was a youngster. Then he cracked the New Zealand side. And I said to John Wright at the time, who was their coach, I said, oh, mate, one of our boys has made your team. I'm really, really pleased. And he goes, yeah, he probably won't never be one of our stars. He's like a backup bowler, pretty good, And I can't wait to see Wright again. Go, mate, you still think he's a good backup bowler? And another one, Andre Russell, who sorry, not Andre Russell, Andre Adams from New Zealand.
I was going to
He's
say
now the bowling
that's a
coach.
big signing.
Yeah, well,
So
it
when
would
did
be for
Russell
him
come
anyway.
over?
It would be big for him.
Okay.
Now, Andre Adams, the good doctor as we call him, he played for New Zealand and then spent a lot of time leading into summers over here in Australia training with us, particularly when he was still playing county cricket. He moved over here now as the New South Wales bowling coach, and wasn't sure whether he would go to Bangladesh and be their bowling coach, but I'm really pleased he did, and he looks like he's doing a great job and had a great time at the World Cup. So really pleased to see our ex-academy members and great friends doing so well. But just want to say one thing on the Aussies, how they didn't do as well. And, the T20 game is, it's made for upsets because you get slightly out of the game and you can lose it. It's not like one-day cricket or tests where you can fight back in most cases. But what I did pick up is Ricky Ponting in actually the broadcast. He said the lights here are quite low and it makes catching a lot more difficult. Now, Australia hadn't played there since 2011, I think, at the last T20 World Cup that was in the West Indies. And they arrived in, I think it was St. Vincent's. And I heard on the news that only the coaches went down to the ground the night before the game or the afternoon before the game. The players didn't. Now, if that's true, they missed the trick there by not testing out the lights. If we haven't played there for 13 years and the lights are an issue, we dropped 6 catches, I think, in the game. Now, 3 of them were definite chances that should have been taken. 3 were very tough ones. But Australia, are likely to take 2 out of 3 of those tough ones normally. But 3 in the outfield. Yeah, 3 in the outfield. I just think we missed the trick then. I couldn't imagine a Ricky Ponting or a Matt Hayden or a Justin Langer as players not going down to the ground the day before a game and checking out where the lights were, where the boundaries were, getting a feel for it at the same time they're going to play the next night if they'd never seen it before. And Haydos would have done his meditating in the middle of the wicket and, his visualising that would have come up with fancy names for it. But that's the preparation. And, I know they're tired and there's been a lot of travel, but I think that could have been could have made a big difference. Anyway, just my opinion, Sam.
At the end of the day, Jock, as you said, you need to be perfect the entire way through those group stages. And the way the tournament's built is you can't slip up. And I agree with you. I can't see a reason why you wouldn't give yourself the opportunity to do the best you can. And it's those little things like the 1%ers that at the end of the day will make a difference when it comes to taking up something as little as a high ball that we've been doing since we were, 4 years old at juniors cricket. So, yeah, just something to think about, essentially.
Yeah, just food for thought. Anyway, Sam, apparently you've got to go. So take us through where you're going, can you?
Oh, yeah. I just got to...
Which is the magic door? I'm really keen to look inside this building.
It's not that one. It's not that one. I think if we go through here, as we go through, we'll just have a look at Woolpit Cricket Club.
Yeah, beautiful ground, mate. Beautiful.
Absolutely exceptional. So I think there's a little doorway here and there we are, Jock. Amalfi Coast, Italy. I can think of worse places to be. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into our first episode of the Before I Forget podcast. Be sure to look out for future episodes where we talk all things sport, more importantly cricket, but most importantly, we hear stories from our host, Jock Athletic, and his experience in his cricketing career. For now, I'm going to go to the beach. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good one. Peace.
Thank you for watching the Before I Forget podcast by the Jock Athletic Lab. Future eps are going to involve past, present, and future athletes that I've had the pleasure to work with or been lucky enough to work with, also coaches and people I've met through this great thing we have called sport. It's been a great life. Still plenty to go too, by the way. But we're going to bring you interviews with these athletes before they forget, before I forget, and before we forget. All the stories and great advice. I mean, Brett Lee, as an example, bowled many balls over 160 k's per hour. There have been very few bowlers since then that have reached that mark. So still a lot to be learnt from these ex-players that did amazing things. And I want to capture these stories before we all forget. Anyway, this is how advanced we are. These sports could be cricket, could be athletics, could be surf lifesaving, which is another big sport of mine, but also any other sports. I mean, we've had the Australian soccer captain train with us at times, hockey players, rugby league players, rugby union players, you name it, we've had them come through our doors, and all of them have given us great experiences. The great thing about them, and the ones we will get on, are the ones that made a big impact on our journey or our lives, and they are great people that put in great efforts to do great things in their sports or their chosen careers. Some of them might not even be from sport. We'll discuss their stories. We'll bring up some embarrassing moments that they may well have forgotten, but we certainly haven't. But we're also going to learn a great deal from them. And also, we're always going to give you some take-home messages, what you can take and put into your practice to maybe make you a little bit better. That page is gone. We'll get better as we go. We're going to be very raw, very rough to start with, but it'll get better as we go. It's got to be sustainable. Now, if you like this show, press like, I believe. Also, subscribe. That's an important one, apparently. And if we're not your cup of tea, look, I understand, but I don't really care. But it's your choice. If you don't like what we've got to offer, please don't watch. I don't want to waste your time. And my job, as always, is to try and bring fun into the hard work of sport. So the physical side of things, if we're having fun, apparently the science shows us that you'll get more out of your athletes. So my job is to bring that science and practicality and experience together and make sure athletes are having fun doing it. So thanks again. See you next time on Before I Forget.